When Batman the Animated Series originally aired in the United States from 1992 through 1995, it revolutionized the depictions of Batman on related characters within an artistic medium of animation outside of the comic books. The series was so revolutionary that in many aspects, the said portrayals on unique adaptations of the characters of this iconic series were never quite matched again in terms of excellence in any future DC cartoon. But the speculative scenario is this: the Clayface episodes in Batman the Animated Series were massively underrated. The animated series was and still is a revolutionary concept from DC Comics to Batman, as Batman was just modernized in the scope of adaptation through film from Tim Burton's feature in 1989 on the said sequel in 1992. All aspects of Batman at this time were to maintain details of the dark and gritty realism depicted from both films, but with an extra sense of interpretation of the source material which were implemented by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini. These interpretations of the comics were what later made the adaptations in the cartoons so pivotal to modern Batman lore on related story. In particular, Clayface for the animated series was done rather differently. At the time, there were a number of different characters who had used or been affiliated with the Clayface alias, and they had their own in-depth lore on details associated to Batman, the first being Basil Karlo, the second being Matthew Hagen, and the third being Preston Payne. All had complex histories on story in the comics. So Bruce Timm and Paul Dini agreed to somewhat blend all three adaptations into a depiction of Matthew Hagen. Conflicting sources had Clayface in the animated series to be mostly that of Basil Karlo's Golden Age depiction, but with details from the other two individuals as mentioned to call themselves Clayface. From information now known, the episodes to depict Clayface in the animated series were among the most detailed and complex of the original series. The said animation studios that were affiliated with the cartoon were known for their highly complex and strikingly intricate details. But even by these tiers of standards, the Clayface episodes were astonishing, with the superb realism for the early 1990s audiences and were marvels for animation. The quality came with a price, as literally the episodes were so expensive that as a result Clayface only appeared in parts 1 and 2 of Feet of Clay on Mudslide. To simplify or casualize the lack of Clayface in the animated series, the character was never referred to again during the original first era. In the second era, the New Batman Adventures, Clayface reappeared in Growing Pains on Holiday Nights, or even to the third and final era in Justice League as a member of the Secret Society. Further conflicting sources had Ron Perlman, the actor who voiced Matthew Hagen in the animated series, to be something of a struggling actor at the time, in the late 1980s and early 1990s. He was of a semi-known status, and was desperate to get recognition as an actor, and voiced the role of Matthew Hagen with an extraordinary amount of realism. The graphic nature of the performance was among the best heard from the animated series, but Ron Perlman wouldn't necessarily become a well-known actor in Hollywood until the release of the original Hellboy film in 2004, nearly a decade later. Ron Perlman has often been questioned about the particular instance from the animated series, and even the actor himself has mentioned that due to his circumstances at the time, he doesn't necessarily recall the experience. Due to the blended nature of Clayface in the animated series, Matthew Hagen was the casual depiction for the character throughout the 1990s, but it wasn't until the early 2000s when the Arkhamverse video games for Batman corrected the incorrect nature of Matthew Hagen as the definitive Clayface. Paul Dini wrote the screenplay for the first video game, and it was specifically intentional that the depiction of Clayface in the Arkham games was that of Basil Karlo. Serious readers of Batman comic books or loyal viewers of the animated series later knew the details of the blended Matt Hagen, and a consensus later preferred Basil Karlo to be the definitive or the main Clayface. Eventually, due to an effort from DC Comics on Batman Media, there were slow yet specific efforts to bring Basil Karlo to the forefront of modern depictions for Clayface, but to also acknowledge the incredible improvisations of the early 1990s depiction of Clayface in Batman the Animated Series.